I'm Sheryl Nussbaum-Beach, and I am so excited to be here with you, even if it's virtually. I want to tell you how jealous I am, though, that you guys get to be there in Shanghai, and I'm still here in Virginia Beach. But at least through the power of virtual and John and Jeff's magic and the technology involved, I'll be able to be involved in all the learning that's taking place. It's crazy. Alan and I were talking before we came about how we were going to have to go all the way to China to be able to meet each other in person. Sorry, Alan, we'll have to catch that cup of coffee in some other exotic land. But like I said, how exciting to get to be here with you, even if it's virtually. I thought that I'd like to start today, before the frenzy of your conference gets going, with a little exercise. I want you to imagine with me, if you would, for just a minute. So put on your imagination hats and let's do some imagining. I want you to imagine with me a world where everyone is constantly learning. A world where what you wondered was considered more interesting than what you knew. Imagine with me, if you would, a place where curiosity counted for more than memorization of facts, and that classrooms, metaphorically, had more windows than walls. Imagine a world where what we gave away was actually more valuable than what we held back, and where play was not forbidden after age 11. Imagine a place where all students, teachers, everyone, all stakeholders chased our passions. We found our voice. We worked collaboratively together in school with others to make the world a better place. Now imagine that this place was called school. You know, 20 years ago, I had a very different vision of what my role in education was going to be. Maybe it was a lot like yours. I was going to change the world one kid at a time. In fact, my noble intentions, where I was going to pour into these kids and mold and shape their personalities, was even going to leave the world a better place. What I didn't know then, that I do know now, is that any institution that really sees itself as the primary role it has as that of indoctrination or preparing future citizens moves at a pace that's simply unreasonable for today's changing world. It's amazing. Those of you that were around 20 years ago in education know that many of the conversations we were having then are still the conversations we're having now. The reason I stuck it out, though, the reason that I'm here and still here in education, is because of amazing opportunities like this. Opportunities that I get to be before very creative, very determined people who have an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of kids. I see my role now more as one who can recognize potential in others and is just pushy enough to give that push when it's needed. Sometimes it's a nudge and sometimes it's a shove. So I wonder, are you ready to be nudged just a little bit? Okay, well, here it goes. 1 year ago today, a lot of you in the room, in fact, raise your hand if you're one of those, were here at Shanghai. We were all here together. Do you remember? I was, and what an exciting time it was. I know every single person that was at Learning 2.0 last year left motivated, changed, nurtured, ready to go. We felt empowered, and we were going to go back and change our classrooms and our schools. But for what was it for? To what end? Because for most of us, once we got back into the day-to-day routine of handling things, much of what we learned was just silenced. So we have to ask ourselves some tough questions. And one I would say is, what good is all the rhetoric if it doesn't have a heartbeat? You know, what good is everything that we learn and all the things that are going to be going on in the next few days at this conference if you don't have arms and legs in order to be able to walk it out? What we have to do is we have to figure out, what is it that we need to do to implement the change? See, I think we all get the why. In fact, if we were to pass 3x5 index cards around and each of you were to put 3 bulleted points, or you were to go on a wiki, or however we were going to do it, and we were going to say, list 3 things that necessitate the changes that are needed today so that schools can remain relevant in the lives of the kids we teach, I think all of you would pass. Everybody can tell you the reasons why. But I think what's missing today is that a lot of us just don't know how. That we don't really understand, with change occurring at such a fast pace, what is it that we have to do to manage that change? So here comes the nudging a little bit. What I want to do today, this morning, before you go off and listen to the various speakers, the great mentors that have been brought together for you to sit at their feet and for you to engage and interact with each other, what I want to do is I want to challenge you to pick one thing from this conference that you're going to walk away with. Really concentrate on one walkaway that you're going to start to reflect, mull over, talk to other people about, sign up for an unconference about, and that you're really going to take advantage of the smart people you have around you right now, the wisdom of the crowd, to figure out, how am I going to take this one thing and I'm going to implement it. I'm going to plan and implement when I get back, and it's going to change the way I normally do things. It's going to make it different, not an add-on, but make it totally different the way I do things in my school, leading, or the way that I do things in my classroom with teaching. And then I want you to be transparent about it. Make a commitment that you're going to be transparent. You're going to either blog about it or Twitter or any of the other participatory medias to share with other people so we can learn from your implementation strategies and how that's working. Let's start thinking deeply about your schools and classrooms. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you just sitting there right now, ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing as a teacher leader right now to prepare kids to live out their lives and be successful in the 21st century? You know, what is it that I'm doing as an educational leader to make sure that the students in my school are prepared for the future? Okay, heck, let's just forget the future. You know, let's be real zen about it. Let's go in the now. I mean, after all, we're in China, right? Okay, so what is it that you're doing right now, not 6 years from now, but right now, to help my students understand the connection between active engagement and the self-actualization of their full potential that will bring about, no matter what their age? And I mean that, no matter what their age. See, in my opinion, the first principal changes that we all need to be making in our schools and classrooms when we get back into the context of our classrooms and we start to really think about how is this going to play out, is that helping students understand, and helping ourselves understand actually, but helping our students understand that learning to be is just as important as learning about. You know, as educators, I think we've done a brilliant job at helping kids engage with content so that later in college they can engage with content. But the problem with that model is that the rate at which content's expanded. Now, I had an opportunity at a conference recently in New York to do some work with Ken Kay with a partnership for 21st Century Skills. And one of the things that he said in his keynote that he delivered at that conference was, and many of you have heard it, where he predicts, and I guess he gets the information from other places, but he says that by the year 2020, knowledge will be doubling every 72 hours. Now let me say that again in ways that make a bigger impact, I think. By the year 2020, all knowledge, all things we believe to be true and right about biology, language arts, foreign language, mathematics, etc., is going to be doubling every 72 hours. Okay, so if that's true, then we cannot have content, mastery of our discipline, be our focus. Heck, let's just say, for sake of argument, it's not going to, all knowledge is not going to double every 72 hours. Let's say it's just going to be half of knowledge that's going to double every 72 hours. That means that our current system of education just isn't going to work. See, we're a system of education that's built on the precept that knowledge is scarce. Knowledge isn't scarce. We can get anything we want at just the click of a finger. Information is just an abundant, and it's crazy easy to access and distribute and repackage and remix and work. And so what we've got to decide is if textbooks are going to be outdated before they're even written, and a lot of our kids that are entering the 9th grade are going to find that what they're learning has changed or is outdated by the time they graduate, we've got to rethink how we're going to do education. The current model simply in its entirety isn't going to work. So what do? Okay, we have to step back, take a deep breath, then we have to unlearn. That's right. All these things that we're vetted in, we have to unlearn them. We have to forget and say, okay, it doesn't work that way anymore. And then we have to relearn. And we have to realize that we're doing it because we're doing it because of the best interest of students. If you're feeling a little bit unsettled, you need a minute to pause. Well, I wouldn't pause too long because the best way to double this problem is to turn your back on it. In fact, for those of you that are in independent schools and have those stakeholders and those parent clients to be concerned about, I would say to you that probably the quickest way to obsolescence is to not challenge the status quo, to not reinvent yourself, or not to show students how to reinvent themselves. You know, we're the first generation of teachers today that are preparing students for jobs that haven't been invented yet. I mean, that's kind of uncharted territory. It's not business as usual, it's business as unusual. So what if? What if together, here and online, we make a commitment to each other? We say right now that over the course of this year, after we leave Learning 2.008, and we go back to our job-embedded context, what if we collectively began to make bold, principled changes in the way that we structure our classroom and schools? The kinds of changes that are going to allow our students to engage each other in significant ways. Now, I know, because I met you last year, that there's some of you out there that are already doing that. There are pockets of small change taking place. But I'm talking about what if through collective action, Shirky, and through social learning theory, Bandura, and through connectivism, Siemens, that we allowed students to use their time in our classroom instead of going through a textbook that soon is going to be outdated and really irrelevant in their lives. What if instead we allowed them to pursue meaningful, authentic, passion-based scholarship? Passion-based, based on their own interest. Sure, we can work around a framework of what we feel is important, but what we need to do is make sure that students then choose what underneath that framework they're really passionate about. And we help them understand how to use the transformative potential of this participatory media, of these technologies, Web 2.0 tools. If you want to break it down to that, of course, that's fast changing too. And that we allowed them to use these tools to connect and to collaborate with other people and allow them to design their own programs of study where they're able to decide what is it I want to learn, how do I want it, what are the learning activities, what are the artifacts, and how am I going to prove mastery to my coach, to my teacher, to my facilitator that I truly have mastered the objectives at hand. You know, what if all the educators in the room, how about you educational leaders, what if we really came to terms with the fact that school is just one node in the myriad of learning opportunities, network learning opportunities that our students have. Just one node. I mean, it used to be like this. When I went to school, when many of you went to school, we would get up in the morning, we'd brush our teeth, we'd get on the bus or whatever we did to get there, and we would go to the place where learning started. I mean, that's where we really went to learn. That's where learning happened. It happened at the schoolhouse. And we would learn all day long. We would stretch our brains, and we would do whatever the teacher had laid out for us. And then at the end of the day, we'd get on the bus and we'd go home, we'd play. You know, you'd go to ball games, you'd eat hot dogs, you would go bowling, you'd watch TV, you know, the 50,000th rerun of Bewitched, whatever it was. But learning wasn't really happening any place at school. That was the end-all, do-all, which is absolutely ludicrous today. You know, kids are learning everywhere they go. My son Noah, he absolutely taught himself to be fluent in Russian. How did he do it? He was sitting online in his bedroom. I said, Noah, why would you want to learn Russian? What are you going to do with it? What's your objective? He said, do I have to have an objective? Can I just learn it because I want to? And that's what these kids today are doing. And they're having to do it outside of school. You know, but what I want to help you understand, what a lot of people say is, oh my gosh, that's going to make us irrelevant. You know, just because we're one node in a whole lot of learning networked opportunities for kids, that doesn't diminish school's role. What that does is it redefines it. And so what we need to do is be drivers in how that redefinition is going to take place. You know, what if collectively we use these tools that we're learning about at the conference to be able to help our students find mentors and subject matter experts that are really going to engage them in their passions and interests on a level that prepares them to be good future citizens, to be citizens that that are informed and know how to make good choices, citizens that can deal with the social problems that we're going to have before us, and also digital citizens who understand the new etiquette, the new literacies of operating together online and collaborating with people on teams that they've never met before in places that they've never visited before with cultures they're not familiar with. Here's what I vote, okay? You want something that you can do? You want an action statement? I vote that we all drop the junior year of high school immediately. And instead of having that year in high school, we let students take off and go and engage in some volunteerism, some activism, some apprenticeship, if you will. That they join the Peace Corps, they create a project. How about, because we'll have a couple years behind us, if we set this up where since elementary school, they're actually planning, seeking feedback, redesigning, and working on this experience that's going to take place in their junior year. We would save billions of dollars in education to begin with, and kids would get a much richer experience, more relevant. And then we made them be very transparent about the process and come back and share everything they're learning. Not only would they build empathy skills, not only would they get real life 21st century skill training by being in an apprenticeship and learning from someone else, they would be using the tools to communicate and share their experiences so we could all learn. Wisdom of the crowd, none of us as good as all of us. But also what would be happening is they would be helping people, and we would be changing the world and leaving it to be a better place. Okay, I'm a radical, I've been told that. Too big, too radical, all right. What if we did this? What if we leave the conference on Sunday and we make a commitment to each other that what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to empower each student to have a voice, a real voice, in helping us to redesign education. What if we say to them, okay, what we want to do is we want to give you a major role. I don't mean like bring one person in from the student council or 3 student representatives serve on a committee with 25 teachers. I'm saying, what if we gave students a very meaningful place that sent a very loud message to them that says, look, even as your leaders, we're transforming education. We want to get you involved. What we want to do is model transparency to you. We want to show you how transparency in the process works so that you can be an active citizen now, not 5 years from now or 7 years from now or 10 years from now, but that this indoctrination piece is preparing citizens for the future. We start that process and make it meaningful to the students now and teach them how to be citizens while they're with us, and we can coach them through that model and help them understand what's involved. But then, of course, that means that we have to be brave, don't we? We really have to be brave enough to know that they can then hold us accountable because they'll understand how the system works. And so it's a commitment to transparency ourselves. But are we serious about learning 2.0 or not? Is this jargon? Is this just rhetoric? Or does it have a heartbeat? I think we really sell kids of all ages short. How many of you in the room have heard of Laura Stockman? Any of you heard of her? At 10 years old, she's making more of a difference in the world than I will ever hope to make. Who's Laura? Well, her mom was one of the teachers that were involved in the Powerful Learning Practice cohort that we had in Western New York last year. Will Richardson and I had her in one of our cohorts. And in the process, Laura's grandfather became seriously ill and died. And Laura wanted to do something to really give back to her grandfather, to honor his memory, because he was the kind of guy that would do good things for other people just because it was the right thing to do. And so Laura got this great idea about having other kids, 10-year-olds, her own age, be able to do acts of service for people, good deeds, and that would lead up till the time of Christmas. What came out of that is something much bigger than Laura or her mother or anyone ever thought would take place. So people around the world started reading her blog and started donating money and wanted to get involved in helping the homeless and give books to schools that were flooded and things of that nature, Katrina and things that happened like that. And so Laura became a very vibrant voice in benevolence. At 10 years old, she's making a huge difference. The problem is, and I hear Will tell this all the time, and I so agree with him, is that should have happened in school. That should have happened in the school, and it didn't. Instead, that happened in somebody's home. And that's good too, because we really are moving to a place of life-based learning, where we have all these nodes and all these options for learning. But schools should be teaching groups of children how to do active service and be involved in that. You know, I think that as much as I believe in the potential of video games, the one thing that I would tell you about video games is that your stakeholders, your parents, are going to be thrilled if you start to enable and empower students in such a way that they're actually going to be able to get away from the game and go out and start experiencing life. You know, sometimes we have to really start doing the real thing. But I'll tell you why they choose video games. I'll tell you what the lure is if you've wondered. If you haven't gotten on yourself. I know I got some gamers in the room, so you know. Video games, unlike school, has more than 2 predetermined outcomes: success and failure. Video games will allow you, much like life, to have harsh or positive consequences based on your choices. That I get to decide how I'm going to learn, what I'm going to learn, and when I'm going to learn it. And then I go through, and based on the choices that I make, certain things happen. It's not all predetermined. There's not a set base that's already given to me that I have to digest and regurgitate back. And so video games kind of empower a student to make some choices on his own and be able to make decisions. And what if he makes all bad ones? Well, then it's not disastrous, because what he does is he just starts that level over again. And then he gets to sequentially go back through the process and figure out where he made his mistake and what he did wrong. Why can't school be like that? Why can't it have the authentic consequences and lots of choices based on our decisions? So I guess I'm going to leave you with this. I want to give an urgent challenge right now to you educational leaders in the room. I need you to walk. No, I need you to run. Well, I guess first fly. But then I need you to run once you get home and do all within your power to start to usher in this 21st century change. The principal changes, keeping what's working, which means you're going to have very powerful conversations among your faculty to figure out what's working, and keep that, but then make the changes needed to remain relevant in the students' lives that are in your schools now. And we need to understand how these emerging technologies are going to help us form action groups that are going to be able to collaborate together. At our most desperate level, we're going to do that simply because we want to make sure that if a disaster happens, say bird flu or something like that our students are able to engage each other and still the learning will continue and we can connect and collaborate. On the other hand, at the highest level, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we understand how to model the active global citizenship to our students. Teachers, you're not getting off. We all need to commit right here and now to mutual accountability. You know, so much of what we do in the classroom is mandated. We're told what we have to do, and we're held accountable by things that we didn't have a voice in. Let's just decide right now, okay, let's be mutually accountable. Let's be intrinsically motivated to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Going back to why I and some of you got into education, because we wanted to change the world one kid at a time. And so we hold each other accountable. When we see something that's not working or we see a wrong, then we take action. And we teach our students to do that as well. Now, with all apologies to Lennon, I'm going to go ahead and end with this. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope through this conference you'll join us, and the world as we know it will be as one. Have a great conference, and I'll see you in my virtual sessions.